Hey, Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom.
So I'd love to start these podcast episodes out by just understanding, how you got started in the industry.
Sure. Well, I guess my story is a family story. Neil Kelly was my dad, and he started the business in 1947. Um, and I basically grew up in the business. I had one other job. I was an intern for a congressman in Washington, D.C. for 4 months. And other than that, it's always been a Neil Callahan. Um, Kind of at a earlier than we wanted time. My dad had had a heart attack in the late 70s. So in 1979, I became president of the company. So you can do the math. That's 40 some years that I've been running this business. And my dad ended up living until 1995. About 1990, I purchased the company from him, and he built a brand, and we've tried to take it and build on that brand.
Awesome. And tell us more about what you do and where you're located.
So our corporate headquarters are in Portland, Oregon, and that's where we started. We also have offices in Eugene, Oregon, which we expanded to there about 15 years ago. And we expanded into Bend a few years later, and then Seattle about 8 years ago. Our principal business is design, build, remodeling. We have a pretty vital handyman division as well. And we had 7 years ago, we purchased a solar company, the oldest solar company in Oregon. And that's a fairly vital part of our business as well. I just got off a call with our attorneys and negotiating almost $600,000 solar contract with a general contractor. So we're starting to do a lot larger projects, and the growth there is kind of exciting.
That's awesome. We'll definitely dive into that here as we go. But first, I'd love to know, being in business for 40 plus years, I mean, what are some of the changes that you've seen in the industry over that period of time?
Oh, God. Well, where do you start? It was so much simpler in the 70s when I was really getting involved in the business. There was a lot fewer products, for instance. If we were going to remodel somebody's bathroom, we probably had two or three different faucets we'd specify, and now there's hundreds, if not thousands, of choices to make. Certainly, the regulation has changed a lot. It was in the 70s that regulation for formaldehyde and lead and so on came into play. So the health and safety of regulations have really changed a lot in all those years. I can remember in the early 70s cutting asbestos board with a skill saw. Uh,
Probably not the best thing to do.
well, I'm still alive, so it didn't get me, but
Yeah, yeah,
asbestos is a terrible stuff, but it mainly hurt people in shipyards. And,
yeah.
the construction business, there's really not been a lot of deaths and so on from asbestos. I think lead's a lot more onerous. It's something that needs to be regulated, especially to protect children
Yeah.
around remodeling projects or construction.
Yeah. How have you gone about navigating these changes?
You know, uh, there are so many different changes that happened over the years, and I think our participation in industry associations has been really helpful. We have a long history with NARI, for instance. My dad was the founding chair, and we have a long history with National Association of Home Builders and the Remodelers Council. I was on the Remodelers Council in the 80s for NAHB, and those resources have helped us navigate challenges with regulation, challenges with land use regulations, and the associations here in Oregon has helped us deal with with public agencies and permitting processes. We've been real active in industry associations, and I think it's paid back over the years and how we've been able to work collectively with other contractors to navigate.
Yeah, and I'm curious too from a sales perspective. You go from having one, two, three different options. I guess two or three different options for a faucet, for instance. Like, and now you've got a Cheesecake Factory menu of faucets. Like, how do you go about making that switch as well?
Well, we try to find in each sort of product category partners that we work with, first of all. I mean, an example is we've worked with Kohler Company a lot on the plumbing side. And so that we, to a certain degree, narrow down the choices. Certainly, employing a lot of designers, sometimes that's like herding cats to get them to focus on a few product lines. But I guess it really comes down to a product by product, which windows do you use? And windows, for example, we try to emphasize two or three lines of windows rather than buying, not utilizing our buying power. So we try to focus, and our premier wood window right now is a Pella. We've worked with Marvin and Anderson in the past and still use their products once in a while. But focusing on products and utilizing our buying power has been an important emphasis for us over the years.
Yeah, I was reading something the other day about the paradox of choice. You're just being overwhelmed by too many options and presenting to a homeowner. So yeah, I was curious how you did that, but I guess narrowing it down to a couple different types, and then from there maybe a few options.
Yeah, and we try to. I mean, we're a high-end design build remodeler, so we try to stick with just the highest quality products, and we're not going to, for instance, go for a low-end vinyl window to put in one of our jobs. We just won't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's something you wish you had known when you got started?
Let me see. I wished I had known just how challenging the business can be, especially the business cycles, the ups and downs. And I've been through a lot of them. 2008 was a challenging one, but 1980-81 was also just a wow, how much it impacted us. And, we would get to a certain level of employees, for instance, and we go through one of those economic cycles and come out of it with 30% less employees, which is, it's just not fun. It's not fun for those, especially for those who get laid off. But from a management perspective, it's one of the most challenging things. And haven't yet figured out how to, have a terribly smart strategy when those things hit. It's seems like right now we're not seeing any sort of recession on the horizon yet. But I sure watch that stuff so I can think through it and prepare, and hopefully hire people that can help, that also can survive that kind of event.
Yeah, one of the things I hear is around training and retention, and obviously I think even from a broader macroeconomic level, like there's a lot of people are changing careers, asking for more in their existing positions. So I was curious how what you've seen and how maybe you're navigating that.
I think we're one of the few remodelers in the country that has a person on our leadership team who's in charge of training. And I think from a retention perspective, helping our employees improve in their careers. So a carpenter who becomes a project manager and having the training programs basically in the can that can train them to become a project manager. Same thing with, we have what we call at Neil Kelly Design Associates, who do a lot of the drawings and product selections for our design consultants, who are the lead salespeople. Well, doing a lot of training with those folks helps them further their career, hopefully with us, and especially in today's employment environment, um, keeping them with us as opposed to going to work for a competitor is a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I think that's great. Showing them the career potential, their growth, outlook, and helping them achieve that.
Yep.
That's great. I wanted to switch gears just a little bit, and you had mentioned this when you talked about the company. You're focused on high-end redesigns, but you've also entered the handyman space, and you said that represents a sizable piece of the business. Why did you decide to enter into the handyman space, and how's that been going for you?
Deep in the history of the company, my dad had this perspective that we wanted to take care of clients. So we always did. So if we just had done a kitchen for a client and they called up with a handyman issue, say their bathroom shower had to be replaced, we would do that. And what I recognized over time was that having a really successful high-end design salesperson engaged in that dry rotted shower job maybe wasn't the highest and best use. So 1994, we've formally formed our Handyman Division. We had 4 carpenters that were working for us who became what we call sales carpenters. So they estimate, sell, and perform the work on projects. And that's a good portion of our handyman workforce. And we also have full-time salespeople. So, over time, it is really, I think we'll bill out about $8.5 million in handyman work this year across our various locations, with certainly the most in Portland. And Kyle, our handyman salespeople, one of the carpenters who started in 1994 in that division is still doing the same thing. And he has a customer base that's just phenomenal. So all of his work is repeat and referral.
Wow.
And once you get to that point, it's kind of magical.
That's awesome. Now you split the two, right? So like the folks that focus on the handyman services do just that, and the ones that do the redesigns, focus on just that.
That's right, but there's always crossover, and it's presents a very special and good challenge that when one of our handyman people does a small project, the client then says they want to do a bigger project. Sometimes that's a little difficult to navigate, but as long as we're doing the whole process and the design and so on, like we do in our design build division, it works pretty well.
Yeah. And I know you also talked about solar a little bit, and solar, I feel like I hear more about it today, and I don't know if that's representative of the overall industry or maybe just, my group, but, I hear more about it today, and you've obviously been in it for a while. I mean, what are your thoughts around solar? Is it here to stay? Is it going to continue to evolve? And what are some of your thoughts around it?
Oh, it's not just here to stay. It's probably one of the more significant growth industries in the United States with climate change and the impact that we're all seeing. The storms we're seeing off the coast of Oregon right now, I think, are partially, if not wholly, a result of climate change. So, it's one of the solutions is solar energy, both in industrial sized projects, but rooftop solar. And you see Tesla has a program for solar. GAF Roofing has one. The solar industry is just going to grow. And part of my reason I've always been we've been had an emphasis on building green. We built the 4th LEED certified house. We do some home building in the history of LEED certification. Our office building in South Portland that we built back in 2001 was the 4th LEED certified commercial building. So we've been engaged in things related to sustainability and green for a long time. And we were referring a lot of solar business out. And when the owner of the oldest company in Oregon called me, it was just one of those moments. He said, he'd been advised to sell the business to somebody he knew and respected, and his first call was to me. So, nothing's in the world of what we do. Nothing's ever just a perfect story. It's been a little bit up and down with solar, but now it's really solid. We're having a great year, and next year looks like it's almost a little bit scary how much business is coming at us. So we're going to have to really respond to the growth.
What do you think? What do you think is? What would you attribute to that? Is it awareness from the public, or is it the technology within the solar panels? I mean, maybe a combination.
The technology and cost of solar panels has been coming down for years, so that's a big piece. The tax credits that are available, both from the federal government and the incentives in the state of Oregon, are a big piece. The cost of energy going up. But I think lately it's been just homeowners, our state here in Oregon and Washington too, there's a pretty high level of consciousness about climate change. And I think people can look at solar and say, hey, this is where I can do my part, a small impact, but an impact. Golly, my electric bill at my house that has solar panels is the minimum that the utility can charge, $10.66 a month. That can become pretty attractive with the combination financially of all the incentives and so on.
That's fantastic. I'm in an apartment right now, and I don't have the luxury of benefiting from solar, but I'm very envious of that.
Yeah,
of that electric bill.
it's pretty cool in so many ways.
What who do you think? So for there may be contractors or home improvement professionals listening today that want to get into solar. I mean, who do you think is best positioned to enter that market? And, do you have any advice for how they can get started?
It really worked well for us to purchase a solar company, as opposed to just starting from zero, from scratch. So that'd be my first piece of advice would be, if there's a solar company that's been around in the company's market for a while, is to try that. I think aligning oneself with like GAF has a solar program, and they're the largest roofing manufacturer I think in the country. That's a good path to go. They're working more with their roofers to do solar. So a roofing contractor is a kind of a natural. A lot of people will replace their roof at the same time they're doing solar. So if you're a roofing contractor, you may have jobs that are right in front of you that you could have if you had your own solar crew.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems like a natural fit there. You mentioned acquiring a business, and I believe you've acquired a few, if I remember correctly. What's your experience been around, or what's your experience been like around that?
Mostly really good. It's been a way for us to expand. So we did our first one in Eugene, and in those days we built our own cabinets, and the kitchen dealer in Eugene that was a dealer for our cabinets. He was getting ready to retire, so he contacted me and said, geez, would you like to buy my business? And I had never really had that kind of opportunity come up prior to that, and we took a fair amount of time thinking through it and so on, but we acquired that business, and it's really worked out great. Our Eugene location right now is just doing wonderful. Essentially the same thing happened in Bend, and that's that old-time kitchen and bath dealer / remodeler called me up and said, hey Tom, I want to retire. Of course he was my age at the time, so I was kind of going, who's the smart one here?
Right.
But that really worked out, and I bought the building that he had, and that also worked out. Just paid that building off earlier this year, which is a piece of advice I would give to all remodelers, all contractors, is if you can, own your own facilities, don't rent from others. Especially, I have a separate company that owns the real estate, and when you get all those buildings paid off, which I have, it could be a nice source of income besides the income from the business.
Yeah, the passive income essentially, right?
That's right.
What if folks are considering or presented with an opportunity to acquire a business, I mean, what are some of the benefits of doing so as opposed to creating their own business maybe in that geographic area or I guess a green space.
The really good parts of that are that you have a whole team of people that are already in place, as opposed to going into I had intended, for instance, to go into Bend and just start up an operation, but we ended up with two salespeople when we purchased that company, and three or four carpenters, and just essentially a whole staff. That was, the challenges can become converting those folks to your own company culture. And, over time, especially when we expanded into Seattle, that became a challenge. We weren't able to really get the folks there that came with that existing company to fit our culture well. So that we had a fair amount of change. So nothing's ever simple, but I think in the end, it's better than starting from scratch. You have the company's client list. If they, we of course have rebranded each location to our Neil Kelly brand, but there's still a lot of residual benefit from the previous client list.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'd love to hear a little bit on the marketing front. I know you've done a lot in that regard. I mean, what have you done, or what are you doing from a marketing front that you believe has contributed to your success?
I think I was pretty good at managing marketing for many years, and now it's gotten so different. First of all, we've always marketed, even in the toughest times. We kept a presence in the newspaper and a presence on the radio. In the old days, our presence in the newspaper and the radio and so on is proportionately a lot less today. And of course, we're much more involved with things online. So, from the pay side, we do Google ads and all that sort of thing. And we certainly do a lot of effort in the unpaid side of online media, and that's really worked well for us. I mean, we have an internal marketing team. We departed from having a outside agency about I think 8 years ago, and that's been a good move. So we've got a just incredible internal marketing staff that does a great job for us. And if anything, golly, ever since COVID hit, and we had sort of a dive from that. Ever since then, coming back, I've never been in a spot where we almost feel like maybe we don't need to be marketing because the leads are so strong.
Yeah, and effective. What was the catalyst that made you go from working with an outside agency to bringing that internally?
The people, the opportunity to hire some. I hired a guy who had been with an agency that we had worked with. We hadn't worked with that agency for 3 or 4 years, and he gave me a call and pitched me on the idea of us taking our marketing inside, and he's been with us ever since. I think It's about 10 years, 11 years.
Yeah, and does that give you more control over the marketing efforts, or was it never about that control?
It wasn't so much about control, to a certain degree about the expense. We got a lot of good work from advertising agencies over the years, so I don't want to, downplay the value there.
Sure.
But when people are totally focused on your account because they work for you, it's different than working with an outside agency.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I also know we had spoken that you guys have recently either implemented or at least purchased Salesforce. So I was curious what that evaluation is like when you're looking for such a robust suite there with the technology like Salesforce.
So we implemented a sort of build your own CRM, although we had an outside group do that for us I think it's about 10 years ago. And that's worked well for us. But we started, the handwriting was on the wall that we really needed to take the next step. And we actually were pretty far down the pike with some other providers. And what turned out, because we're larger, we have to work with more sophisticated software for our accounting.
Yeah.
So we use Sage Intacct, or we just converted to that. So we needed a software from a CRM enterprise management kind of perspective that would connect with Intacct. And some of the other ones, Co-Construct, which was purchased by Builder Trend, we actually worked with Co-Construct for a while. And when Builder Trends bought them, they ended up deciding not to focus on companies like ours that use Intacct, which, is their business decision. They work well with a whole lot. I mean, they're great programs. Work
Sure.
well with a whole lot of smaller companies, but didn't work for us. So we ended up with Salesforce. And this is just like, I think I signed my first check to Salesforce just the other day. So we're in the process of implementing the CRM portion right now, and we'll probably be there doing that until the end of the year, and then we'll move on to other aspects of our operation. And Salesforce is a pretty amazing program.
Yeah, and that's a heavy lift, and I'm glad it sounds like you have realistic expectations on when that will go live, and I imagine you've got dedicated personnel on your side working on that implementation.
Oh yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
We have one person on our leadership team who's, I think, going to be about a third dedicated to that, and another one who's a quarter dedicated to it. So yeah, it's not a decision you make lightly, and it's an investment that I think is going to be great for our future, but it's also not insignificant at all.
Absolutely. I'd love to ask, when you're not working, what do you enjoy doing?
My main avocation outside of work has been sailboat racing. Done that since the 70s, and for a number of years, I had a larger boat, a 40-footer, that I campaigned in ocean racing. A lot of racing in Puget Sound area and up by Vancouver Island, Victoria. There's a big race called the Swifter that goes out of Victoria. Other than that, we have a vacation home up by Mount Hood, and we're skiers. So skiing in the winter, sailing in the summer.
I love it.
And we love to do hiking too. So.
And you've got a beautiful area there for outdoor adventures.
Oh yeah, Oregon's hard to beat, or the Northwest is hard to beat for hiking. And I'm not a climber, but climbing here is great.
Yeah,
it's really great.
That's awesome. As we get closer, we're running out of time, but I'd love to understand. I know that you are getting ready or preparing to retire next year, which I think is fantastic. And there's likely several listeners on that may be in a similar position. What advice do you have for them, and what has estate planning been like, and when should people start planning for it?
Well, I guess I'm sort of a planning personality, so I've been attending various seminars and so on about estate planning, and I think maybe for 20 years.
Wow.
So from the legal side, I have a fairly elaborate, where all of a company and the property company and so on are in trusts, and trying to make sure that we plan it well to minimize taxes. From a transition perspective, I've also been working on that for a long time. I have a son in the business. I am not wanting him to be put in the spot I was put in, getting into the top job too early. So he probably will be in that spot 6-8 years from now. So I'm transitioning the leadership of the company to our CFO. We just announced that internally last month, and really excited about my leadership team. And that's, again, a long time. I mean, I have been very deliberate in choosing the people for my leadership team that I felt could carry on management of the company after I wasn't day to day. So I'll be, my title will be Chief Executive Officer and Chair of the Board. but I won't be involved in day-to-day operations after next June. Um, and I'm going to take off for 3 months on our boat so that it's like, go for it, guys. And I don't want to be, around day to day having people ask me questions and all that kind of stuff. Just let the new team thrive.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic and sounds really well deserved. So congratulations on that, and going to be excited to follow along and see how the company continues to excel. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Uh, Tom, we are about out of time here, but if there's anything that you'd like to share with our audience, please do.
Well, I think I would say to everybody out there that make hay while the sun shines. This is about as good a market as I've seen in my career. And golly, if you don't make a really strong success and a really good profit in these years, you're screwing up. So do everything you can to take advantage of the market. It won't always be there. There is going to be that next downturn around the corner. Happy to say don't see it coming yet, but make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah, absolutely great advice. Well, Tom, I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Good talking with you, Tom.
Likewise.